Open the education meeting. I see we have several agenda items, so we'll turn over to Tanya and we'll go from there. Dr. Stoker?
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Mr. Schneiderite was unable to be with us this evening, so I'm going to cover what he has under kindergarten registration and the school-wide positive behavior and support and intervention program. One of the things we wanted to share is that kindergarten registration is going very well, but we are getting a lot of kindergarten students in more so than we typically get. So just to give you some numbers on that, to date we have 87 students that are fully registered. Of those 87, 16 are in the process, but some still have missing documentation. So they've gone through registration, but maybe the parents just need to submit their immunizations or whatever that happens to be. So we don't expect that they won't turn that paperwork in. So 87 there. There are 20 appointments scheduled for April 12th to drop off paperwork only. So Kathy will be taking additional paperwork at the, Mrs. Reese will be taking additional paperwork at her window and collecting that information. So there are 20 appointments that are scheduled for that. And then there are 11 parents who have called and still need appointments beyond that. Those additional appointments will be set up for these families, but they won't all be in one day. So they'll be spread out so that we can gather that information. So if we take all of those numbers to date, we'd be looking at about 118 students in kindergarten for this 22-23 school year. I hope that everyone has seen all of the information that has gone out and everybody's registering early, but chances are that that's not the case. So if that's not the case, typically in a given year we have anywhere between 20 and 30 additional registrations that come through in the summertime. So looking at the low end of what kindergarten may look like, it may be about 118. And then if we add on 20 to 30 more students, we can be at 138 or 148 students for kindergarten coming up this school year. So just something to consider. I know we're looking at the budget later this evening. We're talking about staffing and things, some other things. So just something to keep in mind as we go through.
So let's say we have 138 students. Can you hear me, Matt?
What?
We have 138
In all
students.
honesty, Bob, you're not one of the people I have a problem with.
I didn't think so. My days in Hershey, I could yell right across the arena. How many staff members would we be, let's say we have 140 people. How many staff members are we looking at additionally?
So we're going to go through all that in the budget presentation, but we have it broken out by grade level, by number of students in a grade, and then recommendations for staffing. I can tell you preliminarily right now in kindergarten, we could potentially have to go up to 7 kindergarten teachers.
And we have presently right now, how many?
6.
6. Oh, it's only an additional 1.
Correct.
Okay. And are you saying that we might be able to move people around, or that would be an additional person?
It could potentially be an additional
Okay.
position, so a new position.
And that would bring class size to about 20?
Like around 20.
Okay. And how about other elementary class sizes as we're talking about this? If we start shuffling people,
So we have that
like
information.
in general, and what is our goal? I mean, I know what my goal would want to be, but what is?
The goal is to have appropriate class sizes while being fiscally responsible.
Okay. And can you put a number on it? I'll put you on the spot.
I'm not going to put a number on it right
Okay.
now. It's going to be driven by enrollment.
Okay.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to have
I
30
would-
kids in second grade.
No.
That's
Nor
what I'm.
would I don't want to have 30 kids in any classroom.
Correct. Okay.
So to answer your question, currently in Slatington, because we look at the elementaries and we look at between both buildings if we can move anybody around. So currently in Slatington for this school year, 3rd grade has 133 students, 5 teachers, so that's a class average of 26.4.
Okay.
4th grade has 105 students, 5 teachers, so an average of 21. 5th grade has 117, 5 teachers, so 23.4. So again, those would be the grades moving up from 4 through 6.
Oh, yeah.
And then if we go into into Peters, let's see where we are. Our kindergarten is currently at 106 with 6 teachers, so that's around 17, 18. First grade is 106 with 5 teachers, so that's 21 to 22. And second grade is 120 with 5 teachers, so an average of 24. And again, they would be moving up first, second, third.
All right, thank you. I'm just trying to look ahead, that's all.
The incoming kindergarten class, I don't want to say it's a concern, right, because we want children, but we have to make sure we're appropriately staffed.
Yep.
And that's the class that we need to keep the best student-to-teacher ratio.
Okay. And obviously, we probably have some people, maybe in junior high, that, I don't know, you know, that have L-cert, and you just look at the whole picture. Okay. I'll shut up, thanks.
No, you're fine. Any other questions on kindergarten registrations, numbers at the elementary? Okay,
I have a question, sorry.
sure, go ahead.
How, late, well, never mind, my question's a moot point. Never mind, I take it back.
You sure?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, the next topic then we have is the school-wide positive behavior intervention and support. We received, or Peters Elementary received Tier 1 and Tier 2 fidelity rating at Peters Elementary School. So the CLIU 21 conducted an evaluation of the program at Peters. The evaluation uses the tiered fidelity inventory, which is divided into 3 sections. It looks at the 3 tiers. 1, which is the universal features, Tier 2, which is targeted features, and Tier 3, which are the intensive features. For example, the person who comes and does the evaluation may walk around and ask students, you know, what's your motto? What's the PBIS motto? And they're looking for students to be able to say responsible, respectful, safe, and proud. And then if they did, then that question we would get, you know, credit for that. So those are the types of things that they ask, and they look at a variety of things within the PBIS system. Overall, Peters scored 100% in Tier 1, which demonstrates that they continued their fidelity within the school-wide positive behavior support program. And they scored an 88% in Tier 2, which means that they earned fidelity in that tier for the first time. So we would really like to congratulate Mr. Schneiderite, the school-wide positive behavior support team, and all of the staff and students at Peters Elementary School for attaining those levels of Tier 1 at 100%, Tier 2 at 88%. Any questions on that? Okay. Our next one is Lit Camp. Unfortunately, Mr. Pine is not able to be with us this evening, so I will take us through that as well. Lit Camp is a program that we wanted to use for last summer for our Open Horizons program. At the time, we really tried to get that, and we were unable to get that just because of supply chain issues. We were looking to move away from, during the pandemic, obviously, students were doing a lot on computers. We were looking to have actual hard copy paperwork and books for them to read, and we were just really struggling to get that program. So we tried to purchase that last year. It's through Scholastic. It includes level readers and instructional plans. It's K to 6. We would not be necessarily using that K to 6 because this year we're looking at that middle school 6, 7, 8 as a separate transition type of program. As I said, it's a hard copy program. It's not digital. And it is sustainable. So we would be looking to use it strictly for our summer program, not to incorporate it during the school year, so it should last a long time. And then we would have those kits for a while. But we're looking to purchase that this year because we were unable to get that last year.
Is that going to come out of ESSER?
It would come out of ESSER for the summer programs. And then the quote is up there. We're looking at $5,875.10, and they're kind of, you know, the kits are in different grade levels, K1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, and so on. We still would like to get the upper level kits because we expect that during the summer, not only will we be remediating students, but also potentially enriching students in the elementary. And we know that some of those students may come in reading above, 5th grade, 6th grade, so we would like to get kids all the way up through those grade levels. Any questions on that? Okay. Do we have the, go ahead.
Mrs. Snyder, you have written down that you may want to comment on
Yeah,
the camp?
I don't know, maybe it's not the right time to bring this up, but I'm a little concerned about what this program is entailing. I did a little research on it today, and it talks a lot about social emotional learning, and I think I want a little bit more information on this social emotional learning, because I'm feeling like there's a lot of controversy out there on this particular curriculum, and I do want to bring everyone's attention at some point to talk about that, because there seems to be some issues within that curriculum that could be not really liked by many people.
Within the lit camp curriculum or within social emotional learning?
Social emotional learning.
And do you have specifically what you're talking about that's controversial?
Questions being asked about, your gender, microaggression, other issues related to this kind of stuff. I have an article that I listened to, and I was very disturbed by some of the things I heard in it, and I would like you all to listen to this article. I'll email it to you so you can kind of hear where I'm coming from, what perspective I have from this. I mean, I'm a parent. I am concerned. There are other parents out there that are concerned. So I do want to just kind of get your opinions on that and tell me, is that really happening, or,
Sure, so if you can share that article,
I'd be glad to.
I can give you my email address, and if you'd like to send
I
that
can
to
get
me,
it
and then we
from
can
the
get back in touch with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on lit camp?
Dr. Stoker, did we skip over IXL?
Yeah, I think Mr.
Oh, I'm
Hauser.
sorry.
I'll jump back to him then. Is this something that we're looking to approve at our next meeting?
The lit camp?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that information, as soon as you can.
Yeah,
I'll
I was just gonna mention that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
All board members, I'll let you know.
Mr. Hauser, I apologize.
That's okay.
Go ahead, why don't you go ahead and do IXL?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Stoker. I wanted to update the board and everyone in the community about some things going on at the middle school and some updates we're looking to make to our programming. One of the things that we tried to do at the middle school this year, kind of from the beginning of the year, was look at our assessments and begin the process of evaluating how we are using assessments. We had, a lot of things on our plate this year, but this one stayed at the forefront. So coming into the year, we're reusing kind of a couple different tools and slices, and not any one thing to a degree of fidelity that I was comfortable with. And we looked at everything from how we are using STAR benchmarking and how that information is being used. And what we had found was it wasn't really impacting the classroom. The teachers felt as though it was not necessarily an age-appropriate tool that was valid to measure kids in reading and math. We began looking more at IXL, which we had brought into our programming last year, and what we had found was it's a good tool. We might not have been using it to its maximum capacity. And I also wanted the faculty to evaluate USA Test Prep, because the high school has made some strides in moving toward USA Test Prep as a tool this year, and there are plans to continue that. So I thought maybe middle school is that bridge, building it forward and helping. So we did conduct a pilot of USA Test Prep over the winter. What we had found when faculty compared USA Test Prep to IXL was that for middle level learners, IXL was the superior product. It was also the more cost-effective product, but just educationally, it was the superior product. Mrs. Bariana and Mrs. Dunham did request some professional development in that. So we did provide that, and they went to an IXL summit last month and brought back a lot of good information that they are sharing with other members of the faculty. So I'm very confident we're going to be able to dig into the different types of data reporting that is very palatable to classroom teachers and can definitely impact what we're doing instructionally. So we spent a good amount of time really critiquing what we were doing as a third-party assessment tool to figure out where exactly our kids are. So I did want to update and say that work was, I think very well done by middle school faculty and of course by Mrs. Dunham as well. Our next steps, we are looking next year to move to a more complete and robust implementation of IXL, and we're looking at its benchmarking tool as what we're going to use to kind of get an idea of where kids are when they start the year, and then do checkpoints throughout the year. What I like is IXL is we don't necessarily have to use two tools. One tool that is standards-based, how is everybody versus where they're, quote unquote, supposed to be based on grade level standards. It has that, but that's not the only component to it. It also has a differentiated component to it, as depending on what part of the program you're using, it will adapt to the learner, so strengths and weaknesses. So we're getting the best of both worlds there, and that I think is helping. One of the reports that I get building-wide are the number of skills that are deemed proficient, or they use the word master, in that programming weekly. And they kind of set, when you average everything out for a building of 250, they kind of want that between like a half and one skill somewhere in there, that pretty much everybody's getting one thing, and we've been averaging well above that. So it is working well, we think, and we're excited to see where this tool goes. We're also taking some time, myself and Mr. Stroll have looked at grade book assessments as well, and we're beginning the process of evaluating what is actually going into the grade book. We wanted to get this tool down first, prioritize this, and now we're moving forward in the right direction. So I just wanted to update everybody on that, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
No, I think that's one of the things that we addressed when we met, Mr. Keegan and I. Obviously we know that it's going to take some time, to get to where we need to be. But I'm happy to hear that we're starting to take a look at some of those things. Obviously, we have to see where our curriculum is first, and then start taking a look at the results we're getting from, whatever program we're using. You're using IXL. And then how do we make those appropriate changes in our classrooms? That's what we need to do. So, and that's where we're going to start seeing growth. So I'm glad you're looking at grade inflation. It's a big concern of mine. How are our students performing? Not just on those nice soft skills that are also important, work ethic and, completeness and all that, but, what are they actually learning? And I think looking at all those factors is going to help. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I would offer too, one of the ways we learned about IXL in more depth this year was we took our flex period. Every day the kids have a flex period. We might have said study hall, when we were there, but we use it for a lot of different things. But twice a week we say, this flex is for a particular subject. So one's for ELA, one's for math, and we use IXL in its differentiated form so the kids can get on there and practice. Sometimes teachers, depending on what's going on that week, will assign a specific assignment to them. Most of the time it's something that's differentiated. So they are getting about 45 minutes twice per week across different contents just to practice at their level, which is in addition to what they're getting in their normally scheduled class time. So that we think has been doing them wonders to try to remedy where we were last year at the height of COVID. Now trying to fill in some of those gaps in learning this year.
Any questions on IXL? Okay. The next topic on our agenda is Canvas. We've been talking about Canvas at our education committee meetings for the past few meetings, and on our last board agenda, I believe it was, we approved the purchase of Canvas. This is actually to go back and adjust what we're purchasing. We were looking originally to move it to 22-23 for all of our purchases. That would be for the cloud-based service, for the Tier 1 support, and for also our professional development and coaching. What we're looking to do now is to split that. Teachers are looking for training. We're looking to offer that training earlier, whether that be over the summer or at the end of this school year. So we're looking to split that. So we'd like to make an amendment to the purchase so that the cloud-based, which is the 6768, and the Tier 1 support, which is 3,500, for a total of $10,680 or $260,680. $68.75. So that portion will continue to come out of the 22-23 budget, but we would like to move the other piece up to the 21-22 budget. So we would like to pay the $4,200 out of the curriculum and instruction budget, so same budget, but move that up with an amendment through the board agenda if the board members present agree to that, so that we're paying the $4,200, which essentially is going to be for the admin, for our technology integration specialists. We have 6 sessions at $200 each. That would be hour-long sessions for us to kind of game plan. And then 6 sessions at $500 for a total of $6,000, which are 90-minute sessions that we would be offering district-wide trainings. We would just like to pay for those a little earlier so that we can begin to implement some of those.
Matt? Rob? Good? Michelle?
Is there like a time frame from the time that you purchase it that you have to schedule your sessions?
I don't believe there is. I can get you a clear answer on that, but I don't believe there is. Do you know the answer to that, Tim?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
couldn't hear the question.
Sorry.
See, Michelle,
I'm
you
the
listen.
person Matt was talking about. I said, is there a time frame from the time that you purchase a consulting, like the sessions that Dr. Zucker was talking about, that you have to schedule them? Or is it like we could purchase them, it's April and we don't have to schedule them until,
I don't
August,
have that
November,
answer, but
January
I think
next
we
year.
want to do it earlier rather than later, because we want to, there's a lot of teachers that are already chomping at the bit to use this.
sure.
And although Canvas has instructional videos that you can go in and access, like I've gone in and I've already done 3 of the trainings myself, but
Yeah.
it's different having a consultant and having somebody else there, so.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So as soon as we can get that into professional development days, that's what we're looking at.
So we can find that out for you.
I just meant, does moving up the purchase change the time frame that the purchase has to occur in at all? That's my question.
Yeah, I don't know the answer
Probably
to that.
not, but-
Our quote still continues to go through, it looks like, the following year. So like 1 full year.
Okay, so that's enough.
So I think we should be okay, but we can definitely
Yeah.
clarify that.
Yeah. Okay,
I think we're good.
yeah.
So I'm hearing that can move to the Monday agenda.
Correct.
Can we go back to Lit Camp for a second? I don't know that we ever posed a question to the board members. Do you support that being an agenda item Monday night for consideration?
Well, I was gonna wait until we got some more information on that. I would like to read that. I mean, we could put it on the agenda and then have a discussion then.
If it's not on the agenda, that could become a supply chain issue. and
Understand.
Getting it for the summer, it would be for your consideration. You
Right.
can always say no.
I'm okay with that. Everybody?
I'm okay with that.
I'm not sure exactly what you said, Matt. You're saying you want to put it up,
For the purchase of the Lit Camp, I'd like to put it on Monday night's agenda for consideration. So if the board does support the purchase of it, we can process the purchase order right away. So we have the physical materials for the summer programs.
So we don't have to wait another month
Yeah.
to approve it.
okay, yeah, I understand.
I mean, we'll have a discussion, I think, at the board meeting, and, I mean, if it's,
Yeah, and if
Okay, then I'm all right
necessary
with it.
consent through, then
Yeah.
we can review before then. Yeah.
I think we're okay, Matt.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Our next agenda item is the career fair update. Mr. Stroker.
Thank you, Dr. Stoker. The career fair continues to be on April 22nd from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Last time I brought this up to policy meeting, we had about 45, 46 vendors. We currently have 54 vendors. We just signed on Slatedale Emerald Lions Club, Northampton Community College, L Tri-C's CDL Truck Driving School, Eastern Millwrights Regional Council, IBEU, EW, 375 Electricians Union, Heat and Frost Insulators, Local 23, Steam Fitters, Local Union 420, Representative Mako, and Jim Thorpe River Adventures. I got a call today from the PA State Police. Their hangar, actually, they said that their helicopter is available to land on our property that day. I'm looking to make it impactful for our students. So we are welcoming hard assets such as aerial and ground vehicles. We're going to set up a date to meet with Officer Frank Naus to locate the appropriate area where they can land the helicopter. And then they'll set up a table inside the gymnasium. I'm finalizing a logistics letter email that has the student schedule, an aerial footage of the traffic flow patterns where vendor parking will be and the hard asset parking will be between both schools. Again, we have other institutions such as technical schools, universities, local businesses, community membership organizations, so that students can be educated on post-secondary opportunities. And that's our goal. My goal is to bring the resources to us. We have a hospitality suite set up. We'll be setting that up in Mr. Shuey's art room. We have, with the help of Mrs. Fink, thank you, we'll have pizza, grab-and-go snack bags, waters, some cookies for them. We also were able to get a hold of some Northern Lehigh mugs because we want this to be an annual event and build a relationship with our partners. And we have some leftover T-shirts from the All-Pro incentive. So thank you for everything and everybody who helped me out, Mr. Geist, the traffic flow, and the guidance office, and our school officers. I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Did we let press know what's going on too? Times News, Blue Ridge, Morning Call?
Terry Honor is coming.
Okay.
I want to reach out to more press to get some positive footage, of this. So yes, I'm going to be working on that.
Good. Outstanding.
Mr. Stroll, can you put some of those kind of key points under, I couldn't keep up with your career field update in the agenda, please?
Absolutely.
And Mr. Hauser, could you do the same as well for IXL, please? Thank you.
Anything else for the Education Committee meeting?
Yeah, I'd like to say, I was sitting at a softball game and I had some students come up to me and basically a compliment to you, Mr. Stroll, stating the job that you're doing, the changes that are being made in the high school, your positive influence, and it was kind of nice to hear. I think my granddaughters have big mouths and told them what my role is in the district, and some students came over to me and were talking to me. So I want to commend you for, under the circumstances, what you're doing. And I know you're getting support from other administrators, which obviously, we're very thankful for. But I want you to know what kids are noticing. And it's a good thing. So keep up the good job, and thank you for everything you're doing. I'm planning on being there, so sign in at the office and just take a look at what's going, what the fair looks like. And so
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's a tremendous opportunity for our kids. It really is.
I'll be reaching out to Mr. Briner. He's planning on bringing his students on sort of a walk through the vehicle section. We obviously it's 7 through 12, so Mr. Hauser, the middle school students are involved as well. So, but everybody is welcome here. Even our Bulldog Academy students are welcome to come as well.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? All right, I'll call the education meeting closed, and we'll move on to policy. I have to excuse myself, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say something nice, but you're gonna get too big a head, so I'll just say that's all.
I'm just relaying,
I don't wanna say
don't
too
kill the
much.
messenger, just relaying the message.
Not too much of one.
Personally, if he has a long way to go, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Like 60, what's the matter? That's high praise from.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you Monday.
All right, everybody, welcome to the April 6th meeting of the Policy Committee. Tanya, I'm assuming these are your policies.
All right, I'll try to give you the most abridged version of all the policies that we can and to cover them. So many of the bullet points are already on the agenda for this evening, but policy 318 is our attendance and tardiness. The last time that it was updated was 2015. It's an optional policy through PSBA. but it's something that we think is important to the district and the way that we function. They did give it a new title to reflect both attendance and tardiness, and I'll click on this. It's not a very big update. So this piece here in the middle, it's hard to see, but it's underlined in green. That includes the changes, which really just say that the district shall establish processes for staff to report unexpected absences, which shall be addressed in accordance with the board policy and an applicable individual contract, collective bargaining agreement, or board resolution. So it's been updated to address staff reports of unexpected absences, and it takes into consideration other contracts and things that we work under, and then we have in partnership, that the board has in partnership with various working groups within the district. So that's really the only update to that policy. Does anybody have any questions? Do the board members present, are they okay with that moving to the board meeting on Monday for first reading?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, the next policy is job-related expenses. This policy is recommended by PSBA. You'll see changes in green on this policy. The first one is just the authority. Instead of reading the board shall reimburse administrative, professional, and classified employees, it was changed to support employees. Further down with delegation of responsibility, the superintendent or designee shall develop administrative regulations for approval and reimbursement of job-related expenses, including travel expenses, which shall require employees to provide adequate documentation of expenses. So that was the main point that was updated there, that it has to be adequate documentation. Typically in our district, if somebody is to be reimbursed, they have to show like an itemized receipt. And then at the bottom of that first page, it was updated to, some of our agreements include how employees are to be reimbursed and some do not. So we actually changed that to be the federal IRS rate, because that is what we're consistently using across the district. So whatever that rate is published in January, that's the federal IRS rate per mile is what we're using to reimburse employees for approved travel. And that is it for that policy. Any questions for that one? Do the board members present approve that to be moved to the board for Monday night for a first reading? Yes. Thank you. All right, the next one is working periods. In case you haven't noticed it, the theme is HR stuff this month. So this is working periods. The policy is recommended by PSBA. It was updated to reflect new provisions regarding alterations to the school calendar and school days based on emergency provisions necessary to address the instructional needs and health and safety of students and staff. So this is one of the changes that came about throughout the pandemic. Should we ever have to have an emergency situation or be back in a pandemic again and have to use the flexibility, this builds it into the policy. So you can see in this section right here that this has been updated with that information. The policy also takes into consideration applicable collective bargaining agreement provisions, the administrative compensation plan, individual contracts, and the board-approved health and safety or other emergency preparedness and response plans. Any questions on that? Do we have the permission from the board members present to move this one forward for a first reading on Monday?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is sick leave. So sick leave policy 334 was last updated in 2015. This is a policy that's recommended for legal liability purposes from PSBA. It was updated to expand who can provide required medical documentation. So previously, it said it had to be from a physician certification. This expanded that to include a licensed physician, certified registered nurse practitioner, or a licensed physician assistant. So there are different providers now that can give an employee a note. It was also updated for pandemic-related experiences. For instance, if an employee needed to quarantine, that's now added at the end of that paragraph as well. Sick leave bank language was also added here. So you'll see in this paragraph that it refers to our sick leave bank. We have had a sick leave bank policy, which is 334.1 since 2016. But our policy 334, which is kind of the overarching policy for sick leave, did not mention the sick leave bank. So this really just ties the two policies to one another. And those are the changes for that policy. Any questions? Do we have the approval of board members present to move that to the board meeting for Monday for a first reading?
I'm fine with it. Robin, are you good with that? Matt, are you good with that? He's making a TikTok over there. Matt?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You good with that?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
fine. I thought I said that before. I apologize.
All right, we're good. Alrighty. Next one is social media. So our social media policy is optional for school districts through PSBA, but it is recommended for consideration if the district maintains social media accounts like a Facebook, a Twitter, Instagram, or others that are operated by the district for communication with the school community. We, back in 2018, once our one-to-one was deployed and we started to have more social media accounts, we created our own social media policy. And I think we did a really good job. Eric, I think, led the charge on that and looked at a lot of policies throughout the area and tried to put one comprehensive policy together, which I think he did a really good job in framing that. Things have changed though, obviously with technology since 2018 to 2021-22. So we are actually at this point looking to now go with PSBA's policy. PSBA has created a social media policy in 2021. So we're looking to take our current policy and rather than making all the edits and changes, we're looking to just go with a new recommended policy. So I'll go ahead and show you that. Attached to the agenda is the old policy if you want to see it, but again, this language is all new language. So some of it is outdated, but we did include the account ownership section. So what we originally put into our 2018 policy, we are carrying over. Eric, I don't know if you want to speak about that change that we're carrying over.
Yeah, the account ownership just clarifies that if we use a social media account, if there's one approved for school district use, it clarifies that the person that creates the account should use a school email address. That way, if that person would ever to leave the school district, our tech staff could then take control over that account. We could lock the email address, we could do a password reset and all those good things. So we added that in there in this policy. That wasn't in there. We thought that was important to add that into this policy.
Included too in the new policy is that the board would approve any social media accounts operated by the district or the schools so that the board is aware that those are operating accounts and sanctions the accounts that we do have. Also in the policy, it includes more robust language regarding accessibility under ADA. As you know, our webpage and any of the social media platforms, things that we're using to communicate with the community have to be ADA compliant. So this policy includes that, so we thought it was important to transfer over to the new policy. Any questions on that policy?
Do we have a current list of all?
Of the media accounts?
Yeah,
I do know the media accounts that are out there.
okay,
I do not have all the credentials for them, but that's why we put into this policy that we would have that they would have to use a school email account. That way, we know we could always take ownership of those if we need to.
okay. And that was gonna be my next question. Will the existing ones have to retroactively go and change the email associated to an NLSD email?
To my knowledge, most of them are already, the ones that I know of are already using a school email account.
Okay.
But that's something that we should, we should go back and retroactively look
Yeah.
at, make sure that they are using them. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have approval of the board members present to move that policy to the board for Monday night for a vote, for first reading? Thumbs up.
Matter.
Yep. Yep. Okay. And our last policy this evening is identification badges. This policy was last updated in 2017. This is a policy that we are choosing to update. It's not something that was recommended by PSBA, but we are choosing to update this. Let me click on the policy. So we are now required through our insurance company to do multi-factor authentication. I'll let Eric talk about that in a minute. But one of the options that we're providing is to have a multi-factor authentication token. So it's a device that we would have, and if the devices become lost or stolen or things of that nature, we need to have to be able to replace those, and that obviously comes at a cost to the district. So the changes to this policy are at the bottom. As we made those changes, we also went back and we have key fobs that we currently give out to employees of the district. And we had a expense of if they were lost or stolen, that we would replace those for $10 at the employee's expense. We changed both that section and the new section to show that it would be, the employee cost would be reflective of whatever the district had to pay to replace that. So Eric, I'll let you talk about multi-factor authentication.
Yep, we wanted to add this section because, as you know, we talked about it last committee meeting, but our insurance company is now requiring us to have multi-factor authentication for email. So what that means is some of our staff, they're going to have the option to either use their cell phones, or if they don't want to use their cell phone, they can get a multi-factor authentication token. So we thought it would be a good idea to put that into a policy because those are rather expensive, and that way it would be in a policy that when they receive the multi-factor authentication device, after they leave, if they leave the school district, that they then would be required to turn it back in, or they would be charged a fee. And likewise, if they lose the device, it's in policy that they'll be charged a fee, whatever it costs us to replace the device. So that's why we wanted to add that into this policy.
Yep.
Do you have any idea what that would be at this point in time?
The cost? The cost is going to be, right now, probably around $40 to $50. And I did a survey to staff actually to find out what they would like to use, if they would like to use their cell phone or if they would like to use a device. And in that survey, I told them it would be roughly $50. As of now, we only had a handful of employees that said they would want a multi-factor authentication token. The rest, majority of the people said they'd rather just use their cell phones. But since we don't provide cell phones, we can't force them to use their cell phones. That's why we have to give them that other option. And it would be about $40 to $50.
I just got a key fob for my car, it was like $300 or something.
Not that much.
Thank God, yeah. What's that?
They saw you coming.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, any other questions on that policy? Okay, do we have the permission from the board members present to move that one to Monday night's board meeting for a vote? Okay. Yep. All right, that's the end of the policy committee agenda, unless anyone else has any comments on any policies.
Okay, next meeting, May 4th. Okay.
Do we need a pause?
Close?
Yeah, maybe just pause for a second, Mr. Turge.
Yeah, I know, missing link's coming. He's coming down the steps. Nope, that's Sherry. He's coming.
I think so, we should go over that. How are you tonight?
Good, how are you? I'd like to welcome everybody to the April 6th Technology and Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting. And since our missing link is here, turn it right over to Mr. Durr.
Welcome, everyone. First thing on the agenda this evening is the hourly rates for our summer workers. I think probably it's a two-part motion that we would be looking for. First one would be to allow us to, again, hire 5 students and a supervisor to supervise the students while they're working. And the second part of the motion would be to increase the hourly rate for the students. It has been $10 for probably 5 or 6 years, and we're recommending we bump that to $12.50 an hour for students, and the supervisor rate would remain at $15 an hour. Any comments, questions? We trying to be competitive with other employment for the summer? Other employers for the summer?
Yeah, we'll be flipping burgers if we don't get them up here, right?
Could be.
Michelle, you okay with that?
Yep.
Matt?
Good luck with that number, but go for it, yeah.
Well, we did compare it, we called other school districts, and that's what, we're in line with what other school districts are
Okay,
paying, so
good.
hopefully that means we can get some kids, but.
Good.
So Monday evening on the agenda will be a motion to allow us to hire the 5 students and 1 supervisor and those rates. Next item on the agenda, Act 39 of 2018 requires every school district who is not mandated or not required to have DEP monitoring for lead and copper must do their own testing in-house. So since we are supplied in this at the middle school, high school, field house in Slayton by the borough, we're required to do some testing. And I'm happy to report that the action levels we weren't even close to an action level for lead or copper, so we're well below the action levels. So, and that fulfills our requirement of talking about our lead and copper testing in the district for annually is what the act says. So we're well below the action level. There's nothing else that needs to be done. Questions on that?
How much did it cost?
I didn't get the invoice yet,
Oh, okay.
but I certainly can add it to the slate.
I remember it was exorbitant the first time we did it. I don't know if it's still as high as
I
it
don't-
was.
I don't think it's that much.
Okay.
The next agenda item, Advantage Fitness 5-year service agreement. Advantage Fitness installed the weight room equipment in the field house probably 5 or 6 years ago. Our lease is completed on that now, but we still do maintain a preventive maintenance program for that equipment. And I've been doing annual agreements, so, and they've held our price to $1,500 a year, which is $750 every 6 months. They come, they do the inspections on all the equipment, they adjust what they can while they're on site, they make repairs where they can, and if parts are ordered, they are, that will be complete on time and materials depending on the part. They have been great to work with. In the past, if there's a piece that our maintenance department could install, they just ship it to us, we'd pay for it, and we'd install it. So I asked them if, would they be willing to give us a 5-year agreement and hold us to $1,500 a year for the entire 5 years, and they said yes. So I thought that probably now would be a good time to take advantage of that, holding that number for 5 more years. So I was looking for board approval to move forward with that agreement. Any questions, concerns?
So committee approval for it to go to the board.
Yep, committee approval here, and it will be a board motion on Monday evening.
Michelle? Good? Okay.
All right, thank you. The next 2 items, they were items that we talked about, I believe, in February. The Peters Elementary elevator door, there are no longer manufacturing parts to fix that door. It's still working for us, but at any time it could stop working. And if we have handicapped students that need to get up and down from the 1st or 2nd floor out of Peters, we'd run into a problem. So at the last meeting, everyone, I think, was in agreement that we could move forward with that project. This would be paid for out of money from my budget, my current school year budget. Doesn't, it's funding from my current school year budget. Any questions about that one?
How much did the door cost again?
30.
$34,647.
How much does a whole elevator cost?
Well, more than that.
Yeah. A lot more than that.
The rest of the equipment is in great working order, it's still serviceable, there's
okay.
still parts available. The door, however, is a door from 1991 project.
You satisfied with that, Michelle?
Yeah.
You got it.
So there'll be a board motion on Monday evening to approve that project, for that work. The next one, we talked about it in February as well. In the guidance office out of Peters Elementary, there's a unit that hangs in the ceiling, provides heating and cooling. It's well over 30 years old, and parts are unavailable for it any longer. It's time to upgrade it to a new piece of equipment. And the cost of that, I had them update the quote, $15,200. So that's for them to come in and completely replace the entire unit. And it would be added into our building management system as well. Currently, it is not attached to anything that I can actually see it running. This one will also be paid for out of my current school year budget.
This year's budget.
Yes.
Yes.
The agenda item will be on for Monday evening. The next agenda item, results of our board walkthroughs last Saturday and I believe Monday, past Monday, Tuesday. So we walked through the high school and we have 5 board members there, if I remember correctly. I compiled the notes from everyone's input. And Michelle's.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if anyone wants to go over it line by line. I believe that probably most of it is cosmetic or repairable at not much expense. It's replacing some ceiling tiles, some dented lockers. The only thing on there that would involve $800 to $1,100 is if we wanted to replace the drinking fountain in the auxiliary gym. That's the wrestling room that we looked at. A traditional drinking fountain's about $800. A bottle filler and drinking fountain combination is $1,100. I didn't know if anyone wanted to make a recommendation. There are 2 other drinking fountains that probably should be replaced in the high school as well.
there is currently a water bottle filling station in close proximity to where we're considering replacing these units in the wrestling room and the girls' locker room. Literally, they have to open the door and step into the hallway to get to an actual water bottle filling station. So I don't know that it's necessary to add a second water bottle filling station for $1,100 in such close proximity. A water fountain would be appropriate for inside the locker room and inside the wrestling room.
I would fund these out of this year's budget, my budget.
So you're looking at water fountains then?
I think that probably the water fountain's a better choice. There is a bottle filling station, if you remember, right outside the door.
Yeah, there was one right available, so, you know, yeah, I think we're fine there, really. I
So
think we meet what we have to meet, so.
So what are we saying? We're gonna replace the one inside the locker room, but not the one inside the wrestling room? The
I
water
think
fountain.
what I'm hearing is we'll replace both of them with a water fountain, the auxiliary gym and the girls' locker room.
Okay. Does the auxiliary gym really need one if there's one literally right outside that door that's a water fountain and a bottle filling station?
It is right outside the
Like
door.
they're probably like 9 feet apart.
Yeah.
In the locker room, I understand, because like you could be changing your outfit or something. You're not gonna walk into a hallway. But I don't think anybody that's hanging out in the auxiliary gym cares about walking in the hallway. So do we need that? You know what I mean?
I understand.
Do we need that?
Because I'm looking for a
don't think so.
recommendation.
I don't think we
I'd
need
say
one. I think we
replace
need
the
one in the
one-
girls' locker room. I don't think we need one in the wrestling room because there's one right outside the door.
Right.
So.
I'm fine.
Mr. Geis, any input on that for our athletes while they're in the wrestling room?
No, I mean, if we want to use the outside, but we'd have to do something with the existing water fountain and finish that off so that it's no
Yes.
longer a hazard. So I don't know what the cost of that would be.
Well, we could easily cap off those water lines in the drain and we have concrete block here. We can just lay block back in the hole. It would be permanently closed.
That's fair enough, as long as we can make it finish off and it'll be
Yeah.
somewhat
So it's not
decorative.
just like a
Yeah, not,
dead thing there on the wall.
yeah, nothing extravagant, but yeah, that would work.
Okay.
Mr. Geis, do you want to get direct input from the wrestling coach?
I can, but I think
Or have you already?
I haven't in regards to the water fill, the drinking fountain. I mean, I can, but my recommendation is we already have one out there.
Because that bottle filling station has a drinking fountain thing on it, right?
Yeah.
I think I clicked that, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have access to that document, so can you, to the walkthrough punch list? So I can't put the notes in here.
Do you want me to add them or give you access?
You can add them when we're done.
Okay. We looked at the ladder, the monkey bars in the weight room, or in the wrestling room. I did talk to the wrestling coach about it. He said he was fine if we would remove them. I don't think, Brian, you were at any objection to that, so we would move forward and just remove that piece of equipment there. We talked about age-appropriate equipment, age-appropriate seating in the art room. Outside, we talked about power washing that ramp that leads out to the back athletic fields, which is not a problem. We'll take care of that this summer. Good job for the student workers. Baseball and softball fields, we talked about the possibility in our long-term plan of possible like a baseball, softball complex. That's down the road a year or two or three, so. We talked about adding fascia to the dugout, the new one on baseball, which we're going to do in-house. I have some of the materials now, but we will take care of that one. Another concern at the baseball, softball fields was there's nowhere to serve any concessions. so there's no opportunity there, or little opportunity for baseball, softball to fundraise. And we looked at the tennis courts. Currently, they're not usable as tennis courts any longer. And we talked about the possible memorial there at that area, or maybe it would be a good location for a storage facility for furniture, police cars, that type of equipment. And on the long-range plan, you'll see later that the maintenance shop is on there. It's been on there for a couple years. So you'll see that there. But those were ideas or suggestions. We still have a lot of things to talk through and make some decisions there. But some of these other things on the list were easily remedied or repaired. At the middle school, the gym hallway wall, it used to be a material that was like a bulletin board material, and the fabric covering was coming off. We removed all of that probably a year ago, and we drywalled it, taped it, spackled it, we primered it, but currently the idea at the time was maybe we could get a mural on there from the art department or something like that, so that's something that we could plan for or look at and add the cove-based molding and finish that up. But currently it's primered, it's in nice shape, but it's a nice space to do something else with. The next item at the middle school, tile work in some of the classrooms. There are probably, I'm gonna say 7 or 8 classrooms yet that still have that white vinyl tile in there yet. And each year we've been replacing a classroom of tile in-house. So this year I have a plan to replace 2 more classrooms. I have some tile on hand, I have the adhesive, and that's work that will be done in-house. The locker rooms at the middle school, there was a concern for privacy during changing, when the kids are changing in there. So it's on the list there. I'm not exactly sure what that would look like, but it's on the list to be looked at and addressed. This summer, Mr. Hill is planning to replace a bunch of projectors, and there are probably 3 whiteboards that will need to be replaced during the project. Those things I will fund out of my budget, or we will have money for the 3 whiteboards. And we will take down the old ones and we'll reinstall them in-house. We talked about furniture replacement plan for the high school and middle school libraries. I think the traditional libraries that we, as they used to be with borrowing books and doing studying in there, probably is maybe transition to more of a,
We'll still operate as a library, but also host like a makerspace, more kind of technology-driven type activities with flexible seating.
so that's on the plan. The exterior of the middle school, we added on the long-range plan some sort of a facelift, or looking at that aluminum panels that are on the front of the building and around in the courtyard area, that maybe possibly in the future doing some sort of a facelift, I will call it. Bring it up to more up to date. And we also looked at a tree management plan. Those sycamore trees that are in front of the middle school constantly are shedding bark, leaves, the roots are on top of the ground, and there's probably 6 or 7 of them down along I'm gonna call it along Center Street, that go from like, actually straight out this door, there's like 7 or 8 of them. Same thing, there's shoots coming off the ground all the time. They're hard to maintain, drop leaves on the roof all the time. So I think we need to look at a tree management plan. Possibly, if we remove a couple of them, we would certainly replace them with another smaller tree or shrub somewhere else in the district. We talked about possibly adding a sidewalk to the islands that are in the parking areas between the middle school and the high school. We do bus dismissal in that area. We line buses up on both sides, and currently it's just grass through those areas. So we looked at possibly down the road, adding a sidewalk in there for student safety, easy to walk down through there and get right on the bus. And the final item for the middle school was the marquee out front on Center Street. We've talked about it for quite a few years. We'd like to have a sign board out there that we could change the messages remotely. I'm gonna say if there's emergency drills or something going on that we needed to alert people, maybe a message could go up there, but it would be a message board constantly running things that are going on in the district, any information that we wanted to put up there. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
Mr. Durr, if I may, I would like to point out that one of the items on this list, middle school interior number 3, the locker room and the privacy areas, that is a specific recommendation from students in the middle school as part of a school improvement project in Mr. Weber's Essential Skills and Financial Literacy class. So I'm very excited that it's up for consideration, and it's great to see our students have voice and ownership in prospective changes in our building. So I just want to thank everyone for considering that change to the middle school.
So we have a couple more walkthroughs planned, the stadium, and the turf, and Peters Elementary. So if anyone's interested, I think Mr. Lee shared out the dates that we planned on the other walkthroughs. If you're interested, please let us know, and we'll look for you. The next agenda item,
Hold on, Mr. Dare.
yes,
Sorry.
That's okay.
So what's today's date? Is today the 6th? So did slating,
Yes.
that was yesterday?
Yep.
Okay. And then, obviously,
Tuesday.
I won't be there. The 7th is tomorrow. Today is the 6th, and that will be tomorrow.
Yes.
I won't personally be there, but, will those buildings then be presented at the next meeting of this committee?
yes.
And then at the very end, when we have done all the buildings, when we combine all the lists, maybe we break it out into like cosmetic and small and cheap, summer things that will happen, like so we know like when it's happening, what category it falls in, big and expensive things, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
it's all gonna be
we can try to come up with a more
a plan.
schedule and a priority.
Yeah,
combined.
okay.
And
I wish I could come
you'll
tomorrow,
see
but I
some
can't.
of that in the upcoming budget presentation, but those are
Okay.
mostly more large
Yeah,
projects.
okay. Thank you.
The next agenda item, prior to our middle school construction project, we wanted to make sure that there was no asbestos that we needed to be concerned with, or lead paint issues. So on March 25th, we did some testing of the walls, floors, ceilings, anything that our inspector thought that we probably should test. And happy to report that there was no asbestos detected in any of our samples that we collected. There was no lead paint discovered, and the only result that I'm waiting on yet is there are some floor tiles in there that are being tested for lead. That test takes a little bit longer. I do not have the results, but so far we've gotten good news on lead paint and asbestos. So I'll report more out at the next Buildings and Grounds meeting. Any questions on that testing? The last item we talked about, it was also on our building tour last Saturday, was the fact that the softball scoreboard, the controller failed. The entire unit is from 1993. They don't make parts anymore, and no one's willing or able to repair it. We got a quote, $3,569 to replace it, and we did talk about it in the slate last Friday. We did not receive any feedback from anyone saying, no, don't go ahead and order one. So Monday afternoon, we did move forward. We placed an order for the scoreboard, and we were hoping that it was a 3-week lead time. Unfortunately, I think just this afternoon, it doesn't look like we're gonna have it till June 16th. So we will need to think about how we're gonna, I guess, show the scores during the games that we're going to have here till we get the new scoreboard. The framework that we do have there, we're gonna reuse the 2 posts. We're adding crossbars to it. We're gonna give it a paint job, and it'll be ready as soon as the new scoreboard comes. Matter of just hanging it up. Our electrician will wire it in, and it works wirelessly from a controller right from the dugout. And it is the same exact scoreboard that baseball has. So any questions on that one? There will be a motion on Monday night's board meeting to allow us to make the purchase.
That'll be a retroactive one. Part of the issue with this is it becomes a Title IX issue. If you're familiar with Title IX, if we have male sports similar to female sports, and the male sports have items, equipment, materials, and the female sports do not, that is actually a violation of Title IX. So this is one where administratively, we needed to make a decision to move forward for equity reasons among softball and baseball, similar to the batting cage purchase 2 years ago for softball. Mr. Geis, do we have some way of displaying score until we get the permanent structure?
We might have to go old school and use flip. I mean, to rent a electronic scoreboard, I don't think that's the way to go. If we recall, when the baseball scoreboard failed, we didn't even display it. We had one on order. And we're probably have to go with flip charts, flip cards.
Even if we have 2 of them, you're talking about like what they use in gyms?
The old school vinyl, yeah.
Even if we have 2 sets of them, first baseline, third baseline, so all spectators can see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Does that solve the potential
I-
regulation?
I think because we are demonstrating that we've made a decision to move forward to get to equity,
Yeah,
that should safeguard us.
okay.
And at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
That was the last item on my agenda. If anybody has any questions, please feel free
We can
to.
go to Mr. Hill.
All right, good evening, everybody. I have 2 items on here and not asking for any board approval, things like that, just kind of some items just for updates and for discussion. First one is the phone service update. Just to let everybody know that we did cut over our phone service to the new Penn Teledata service approximately 2 weeks ago. We did that on Thursday, March 24th. Everything's working fine so far. And the only issue there was, if you recall, Lumen was going to decommission some of our the equipment that we had in this area. So they were going to cut us off on March 31st. So we were actually already in the process of switching over when we received those notifications. So what Penn Teledata did, they actually helped us out, and they didn't have the private fiber line installed yet, so we're actually going out over a regular internet line. But they actually did just finish the private line installation. We are waiting on a network interface device that will be installed next Tuesday, and then sometime after Tuesday we'll actually switch over to the fiber line. So we're on Penn Teledata service, but we still need to get onto the private fiber line. So that will happen sometime in April. After they get that installed, we will do that switch over. So we'll try to do it at a time and try to limit the impact communication to the school. And originally that was scheduled for May. We were looking to get that in by the end of May, so we're actually about a month ahead of schedule on that. So everything went well there. And ultimately, we're saving $700 plus a month on that new line installation. And Lumen, actually, the last couple of months, our fees, I don't know if they've been upping our fees as well. So originally it was $700 a month, and it looks like it was actually saving us more when you look at the bills. So does anybody have any questions about the phone service switchover? Okay. So on to the next item. I wanted to bring this item up. This is really for high school student Chromebooks for the 2023-2024 school year. So I'm not talking about the upcoming school year, but the following school year. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is we're in the budget presentation, we're in the budget talk time of the year. And for the one-to-one refresh for the high school, we actually have that built into the budget for the upcoming budget year. And the reason that is because we are going to need to order those devices sometime probably in March of next year in order to make sure we get the devices on time for the following school year. So again, this is really for the 2023-24 school year. The high school will remain HP laptops, status quo for the upcoming year for the 2022-23 school year. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to switch the high school student one-to-one to Chromebooks rather than using laptops. This would be for students only. All the staff would still be on HP laptops like we have now. So this would be for the students. And the reason that is, first of all, we were looking at the usage, and laptops, the Chromebooks are a lot easier to manage. Most of the use that we see with the Chromebook, that we see with like laptops or Chromebooks, the students could do the same thing on a Chromebook. And it's a much more inexpensive device. You know, laptops you're looking at almost $1,000 device, whereas a Chromebook you're looking at a $250 to $300 device. So when I was getting budgetary quotes from vendors, we have to start planning this out a year or so ahead of time. What we're seeing on the laptops, we're seeing nearly a 50% increase in prices over the last time we purchased the one-to-one devices. So what that means too, if we were to purchase the similar devices for the students going forward, we have approximately $150,000 that we set aside each year for the one-to-one refresh for the high school, and this would also include the faculty for all buildings, by the way, not just the high school. That would be for all faculty. We had about $150,000 allotted, but when I'm looking at these budgetary quotes, we would have to bump that budget up to about $225,000 a year in order to basically do what we did in 2019. Okay, 2018-19 is when we purchased those. So we would have to bump that up. So we're looking at other options, and if we were to switch the students to Chromebooks, and then what we would do is Mrs. Dunham actually did a poll of the high school teachers to find out, you know, if they had any concerns about this. We really had two areas of concerns. The two areas were the video production lab that Andy Kern does, and Chris Bennett's lab where he does AutoCAD and things like that in the technology department for the tech ed department. So what we did is we looked at, we could provide Chromebooks, do a one-to-one Chromebook, and we could provide 2 to 3 labs so we could keep those areas with the same software that they're using now, and we could do that within our original budget. So that is what we're looking to do. We're looking to switch, again, go one-to-one Chromebooks for all the students, but then what we would do is we would have enough money left where we could provide 2 and possibly even 3 labs for those other departments those are the ones that had a concern. Like they were worried about, they would like to see the kids still have some Windows experience. They would like to still see them use the Adobe products for video production. They would like to still use the AutoCAD. We looked at some other options there. We looked at, we brought this up before, we had a product called Cameo, where we were doing like a virtual app delivery. And we did test that with some of those departments this year. And while it worked, it just wasn't, they didn't feel like it was, they didn't feel it was as good as what we're using now. So they thought it was, because you're saving files to the cloud and things of that nature. So there was like, sometimes you get, where it just takes, it might take 5 minutes to upload a file, especially in video production where you're using a lot of, a lot of those files are very large files. So what they were seeing is they were getting delayed, and they just felt it wasn't robust enough. So to kind of come together to meet in the middle, we could go Chromebooks for all the students, but then we could still provide 2 to 3 labs for the departments that really need them. All the other departments really can get away with Chromebooks for the use that they have. So I just wanted to bring that up for discussion. Does anybody have any comments, concerns about doing that?
Mr. Hill, is that still at the 150?
Yes, we could do that. Yeah, we could do the Chromebooks and the labs and the teacher laptops, refresh the teacher laptops, and we could stay within our original budget. Yes. And this is something we've been putting out there. We're not blindsiding the faculty. This is something that we've been discussing over the last few months. Brought it up to administration. So this is something that we've been slowly preparing for. Anybody else have any questions?
No questions, but I'm fine with it as long as any faculty who, reasonably requests to keep a laptop is able to do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, we are for
Not for themselves, I mean for their class.
oh, for the classes?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we actually looked at like the applications that they're using in the different departments. And there's a few classes like science where there's science, and there's another class where they use like a TI calculator app or something like that. Some of those you can actually now get on a Chromebook, so we can push them out to the Chromebook. The other option is like in science where they, I believe they had some old software that connects to like a microscope. What we can do is we can actually keep some of the older laptops that we have, and we can put those in place as well. So we have some flexibility there that we can do with the teachers. So. And the other option is, like I said, really the option is go Chromebooks, provide the labs, or we're really gonna have to look at increasing the budget, unfortunately, just when you look at the cost, because I don't see any way to find a laptop to really fit into that budget at this point. So we were looking at other options, and honestly, I think I think going Chromebook is a better solution anyway for the high school, because if you just look at the trends, that's really the trend for school districts. A lot of school districts in this area have switched to Chromebooks. I know Parkland's a big one. They switched to Chromebooks a few years ago for kindergarten all the way up, and they do the same thing. They provide a few labs for those other classes, but everybody else uses a Chromebook. Plus, I think it's, you gotta remember too, Chromebooks are a lot cheaper. It's cheaper for us to repair them. I think for, when you look at the taxpayers, you look at parents, they have a student coming home with a $1,000 device or a student coming home with a $250 device. I think they feel more comfortable with a student coming home with a cheaper device. That way, repairs are a lot cheaper. Chromebooks, a lot of the Chromebooks that we repair, we use parts. We actually keep the parts from our old Chromebooks. We're still using parts from Chromebooks that we had 7 years ago. They still fit, and the LCDs still replace. So if we can do that, we replace them for free when we can do that. So I think it, makes sense from a budget standpoint, but also being responsible, to the taxpayers and parents, things like that. So, but if anybody has any questions about that, feel free, if you think of anything, feel free to contact me and we can discuss it. But this is the plan we are looking to go forward with starting next year.
Thank
Okay.
you.
That's
Anything
all.
else?
That's all I have. No.
Okay. Then I guess that's it, so we'll close the Technology and Building and Grounds Committee. Next meeting will be May 4th. So then we'll open the Finance Committee. And we'll start out with Mrs. Fink.
Good evening. Had a couple updates about summer feeding to start. We will be applying for one of the summer feeding programs called SSO, and part of us qualifying for that is we have to show our eligibility, and the site that we want to run our grab and go meals and basically produce all the meals for serving our students who are at camps as well over the summer will be at Slatington Elementary. You have to be 50% of the population there or more have to be within free or reduced status. Currently, we are at 48.54%, so we are 1.46% short. And we did the math and figured that we are 7 students shy of meeting that criteria. So I have printed off a list of students that are currently under the paid status that I was going to meet with Mr. Briner and you know, see if we can find 7 students that would qualify, that we would have complete applications or direct cert. Because there's actually 246 students who are full pay status right now. And once that happens, then we should be good to go with providing those free meals over the summer for not only the camps, but also the grab and go meals that are open to the community, just the same as it was last year. In terms of the 2022-2023 school year, as I mentioned before, we are switching to the NSLP, which is our regular school nutrition program, where we will have to put out the word sooner rather than later to have parents complete the applications again, but they are not able to until July 1, and they have a 30-day grace period to complete those applications. Most families for the last 2 years, there has been some applications, you know, coming through, but since the meals, both breakfast and lunch, have been served free, they, you know, didn't necessarily have to complete the applications or did not complete the applications, so we will be getting the word out soon for that, looking into next year. And then cost of food has gone up about 6% overall. Some has gone up even higher than that, unfortunately. For example, we try to utilize Produce Junction for some of our fresh produce to get at a discount, and even places like that, it has gone up. Case of romaine lettuce, $25 is now $50. So just that has been challenging for us, but we've been trying to utilize what we have in-house, our current stock at all the kitchens, utilizing our discounted product that we get from USDA to use as a basis to design our menus for the remainder of the school year, still giving the students well-rounded meals, of course. And also our a la carte sales have gone up a little bit. We haven't had our registers opened, unfortunately, or been able to because of our short staff at all the kitchens, but at our middle school and high school, we do have our registers open, so we've been able to provide more a la carte items for the students, so they choose to purchase those. One of the last 2 things here, we, as a Lenorco group, is our food procurement group, and it includes our district as well as 12 other districts. And we all gathered all of our numbers for next year to get ready for our grocery bid, as well as our bread, milk, ice cream, paper products, and that's going to be, the bid will go out on 4/22 for grocery, and then May 6th for bread, ice cream, paper, and milk. So we're hoping that a reliable vendor will take us on and provide us set pricing for next year, unlike this year where, you know, pricing for our food and paper and everything has fluctuated. And then we do have some student balances that I'm looking into ways that we can, you know, put funds towards that to lessen that balance. Over the last 2 years, It's been about 10,000 in student balances, and just going to be working with the principals to get the word out if we can, resolve some of these balances that are still out there from years prior. And we did get about $3,600 from Giant from our Roundup at the Register program that was run through January and February. And those funds we are able to use towards either our Backpack Buddies program for needy children for food over the weekend, or to apply to negative balances for students that need to rectify those. Outside of that, we have some good fun caterings coming up. Breakfast on Friday. Mr. Stroll himself will be making omelets for some of the high school students who were awarded for having the best attendance, correct? It's based off of that.
Correct.
We have senior picnic, we have the career fair that Mr. Stroll was talking about, and Special Olympics as well. So those are some exciting caterings in the upcoming months. Outside of that, that's all I have. It's a
Thank you.
lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. So you finished then?
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
thank you. Well, I guess we'll have to turn it over to Sherry now.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Steven's going to share a presentation for our first look at our 2022 to 2023 school district budget. This is a work in progress document. It is continuing to change up until we do our final preliminary approval, which will be the May board agenda with hopefully a targeted final approval of our budget at the June board meeting, because it must be approved prior to June 30th. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Link. He's going to start with some of it, and then he's going to throw it over to me at times.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Moltor. Steve, and if you could advance the slide. Here is a quick snapshot of our ESSER funding. To date, we have been giving these updates probably for over a year now at the Finance Committee meetings and at the school board meetings. Moving forward, we will only be giving these updates at the monthly school board meetings. Okay, so that's current information and aligns with, well, it's updated from the last time we presented it. Okay, Mr. Hawes, please advance it. Continuing on a little bit with what Mrs. Fink was talking about, our food services, we are still realizing some effects of COVID-19 on the food services department and budget. Some of the negatives are loss of revenue from monthly generated general operating profits, in particular from the a la carte sales, the minor catering, and less overall participation has dropped through COVID, and much of that is because students were either bringing lunch from home or they received a balanced meal under USDA guidelines at no cost to those students, in which case we are only reimbursed so many cents on the dollar from USDA. Some positives, though, are that we can recoup some lost revenue during the summer feeding program, approved by USDA through the end of the 21-22 school year. You heard Mrs. Fink announce that we are looking to work with, in particular, Mr. Briner at Slatington Elementary School to identify 7 more families that may not have completed the paperwork, but are eligible for free and reduced lunch, which would then get us to the 50% threshold, in which case we would qualify for the SSO program through USDA, so we can feed all students in all of our camps and any child that lives in the district and would want to come through the grab-and-go drive-up opportunity through the summer. Again, that program would end with the new school year. However, we are still working through options to see if there's a way that we can continue funding for students in the fall, but right now it looks like we're going to go back to the traditional, either they pay full price or they qualify for free or reduced based on family income. Another positive is that we continue to receive very generous donations from various community groups and individuals to support our families that are in the greatest need for achieving meal security. Some unknowns in this area are, again, free meals for everyone are ending. We're uncertain how many families will qualify for free and reduced meals moving into the new year. They cannot start applying until July 1st, thank you. They cannot start applying to July 1st. So as we get closer to that date, we're really gonna ramp up communication out about please apply, even if you don't think you will qualify, please apply just in case. We don't wanna start that just yet, because if we put all that information out there now, there's still some time in between, and a lot of times, you know, it's kind of human nature to say, oh, I have time, I'll get to it, and then we forget about it. So we're gonna be a little bit more strategic about when we ramp up that communications plan. Some other unknowns are supply issues and increased product costs. Right now, it looks like the supply chain issues and the increased prices are gonna be an issue probably into the fall. So we're preparing to adjust for those unknowns as they become more clear to us. Okay, Mr. Hawes? All right, our Act 1 index is going to be Mrs. Moltors.
Yep, so our Act 1 index for this year, it was at a 3.4% increase as the Act 1 index. Northern Lehigh has a adjusted index. That adjusted index is 4.6, and that is based on a formula that PDE uses based on our structure of employees and working, so it takes into consideration unemployment, SAW rates, and that kind of stuff in order to figure out what that adjusted rate index is. Ours is 4.6. Base rates in 23-24 are projected to go up to 4.3, and for the 24-25 school year, they're based to go up to 4.3 again. 25-26, they're going to start coming down. They're projected to be at a 3.6, and they don't go out any further than that. But the trend is, from what we are hearing, that it is going to begin to decline in the other direction, continuing to be lowered. There was a point in time when Act 1 index first started. It was in the low ones. Northern Lehigh had an adjusted index of a 1.7 for probably about 2 or 3, possibly even 4 years almost. And that really ties our hands on how much taxes we can raise. Which then basically has an adverse effect on programs we can offer, staffing, and many other things across the board. PSER's contribution rate projections, these were from June 30th, I'm sorry, that should be 2021, based on 7.25% market rate of return. 2022, we are slated to be at 35.26%, which is next school year. 2023, it's to go up to 35.69, 24, 36.02, and 25, 36.48. That's going to continue to climb for probably about the next 7 years, and then it will start to come down. Again, these are numbers that we have known about probably for about the past 7 or 8 years when PSERS took a major downslide, and they're recouping the funds that need to be in that system in order to fund the retirement system. But we probably will not be starting to see some relief, and it will go down as much slower than it went up. So it went up very fast, but it's going to come down a lot slower. And that's it. Mr. Haas, if you can advance.
When is it gonna go down?
It doesn't start to go down until probably about 7 years after that. Yeah, it's in the mid 20, 30 year until it's finally going to start heading in the other direction.
Okay, so up next we have our district profile related to student enrollment. You'll see the far right column is our projections for next year. Pretty much for grades 1st grade through 12th grade, we take the year previous, this current year, and then advance it down. So you can kind of see 106 in 1st grade this year becomes 106 in 2nd grade next year. The wild card in this particular column right now, of course, and as we talked about during the education committee, is the kindergarten enrollment for next year. Our projection right now is anywhere from 130 to 150 children coming into kindergarten. we are well ahead where we've ever been since I've been with the district for early April with the number of children that are already actually registered or have appointments on file. And we know that we always see a flurry of enrollments in the summer, sometimes right up through the first week of school. So again, this is the area of concern right now for staffing. Next slide, please. Here, we just kind of put all of that into a visual, going back from the 17-18 school year up through projections for next school year. Each colored bar represents a school building with the key towards the bottom there. You'll see our buildings as a whole are fairly stable over the last 5 years. What happens though within those years is that we often have bubble classes. We'll have maybe a second grade class or perhaps this incoming kindergarten class, which is significantly higher than other grade levels. And then that's where we look to adjust, maybe repurpose certain staff members to a different grade level, and then they follow that bubble class up through the years. Or in some cases, it may be so significant that we actually have to recommend to the school board that we hire a different position so our class sizes do not become too large. You heard me say earlier this evening that I would not support, I would not recommend that we look at having 25, 30, even 22, 23 kindergarten children in a classroom. We also know many of these kindergarten children coming in, it'll be the first time that they are experiencing a structured learning setting if they haven't attended a daycare or a Head Start or some sort of early learning program. So a lot of that, beginning of that year, is focused on teaching children kind of routines and interactions before we actually get into the academics. Okay, Mr. Hawes. Our employee profile, you see this one goes back to 2019, 2020, and then projections for next school year. We're projecting to have the same number of support staff. So support staff are classroom instructional assistants, office workers, buildings and grounds, maintenance, custodians, food services department workers. Professional staff, right now, it could go as high as 129. So that's up, 2.5 staff members. Administration, we're looking to keep constant. And then the total could potentially go from 257 and a half employees to 260 employees. And you'll see that all those asterisks are kind of called out in the red text under the table there. This includes our current ESSER funded positions. So in particular, ones like support staff members funded through ESSER, like instructional aides. Either those positions are going to have to go away, or through attrition, we would transition to people in those positions into other support staff positions that are built into the general operating fund. So if somebody retires from one of those positions, we could slide somebody over from an ESSER funded position into a position that's already in the budget without increasing the budget. We will not know how that all plays out for certain until the 23-24 school year ends. You'll see in here that we also have budgeted for an additional elementary special education teacher for Slatington Elementary School. That is so we can remain in compliance with the limits set on special education teacher caseloads. Those limits are dictated to us by IDEA, the federal law that oversees special education implementation. The school board will also have to ultimately make a decision on another elementary classroom teacher, potentially for that incoming kindergarten class. Or previously there's been some talk about a computer technology teacher to be shared among Slatington Elementary School and Peters Elementary School. Administratively, we are not recommending both, but ultimately, it'll be up to the school board which direction we want to go. We're going to present a plan this evening that could potentially adjust both needs with only addition of one position. Also in here, you'll see an additional .5 middle school position. Currently, we have a a family consumer science teacher that is half-time. We looked through some of the significant needs here in elementary school, and here in the middle school, and some of the feedback that we've been receiving about what is working very well. And we're proposing that that half-time position transitions into a full-time position, but not a full-time family consumer science teacher. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. And last, we have, as I think everybody's aware, we have 2 full-time school police officers, one of which is fully funded through grant monies, be it Title IV grant monies or through grant monies we have received from the Pennsylvania Council on Crime and Delinquency.
Close enough.
What's your
Commission.
Commission, I was close. Administration is recommending that that position become a non-grant funded position into the general operating budget for safety and security reasons, and actually all the other services the school police officers and roles that they play in education in Northern Lehigh School District. We would like to have that position become part of the general operating budget. I mean, you look at the headlines even within the last half year, and you see what's still going on as recently as yesterday in Erie, Pennsylvania. However, our goal is to continue to apply for grants for that position, to fund it through grants. However, if we're not successful in achieving those grants, we need to have a backup plan to be able to sustain our second full-time police officer. Okay, next slide, please.
I have a question on that side.
Sure. Steve, can you go back a second, please?
Sorry. Is it called out anywhere in this presentation, the dollar amount associated with the ESSER funded positions?
No, not in this presentation.
Okay.
But we can have that Monday evening for when Dr. Stoker gives her ESSER expenditure report.
Just the personal breakdown.
Are you looking for just this year, Michelle, or overall?
What it would cost when ESSER funding is gone to keep those
To
people.
keep all those
To
positions?
keep
Okay.
every position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and here, Mrs. Molatoris is going to talk about our expenditure and revenue composite data over the last 5 years or so.
All right, so this goes back to 2017-18. The red bars are our expenditures for the year, and the green bars are our revenues for the year. Every time where the red bar is larger than the green bar, it means that we used fund balance in order to balance our budget. The 2020-2021 year, that was an entire COVID year of schooling. So there was a lot of things that did not happen that year, which is why last year we put almost $2 million, a little over $2 million back into our fund balance, of which the board, if you remember when you approved the board motion for fund balance allocations, we allocated all that money towards debt service payments because all of our debt service payments are coming back this year. So in 2021 and 21-22, we did not pay over $3 million in debt service payments. Had we made those payments, that red bar would be higher than the green bar in 2021, and it would be higher in 21-22 as well. We would have had to have used fund balance in order to balance our budget by over $2 million. So this is just a graph showing you where we've been in the last couple of years so that you can see how our revenues and expenditures are matching up to one another. If at the end of the year, I am currently projecting that we are going to put some money back into fund balance. Our fund balance will have a balance of $12.6 million left in it. On average, it is good to have at least 3 months worth of revenue savings basically, in case PDE ever comes through and ends up holding our funding. A couple of years ago, they didn't pass a budget until the end of January. We were very close to needing to dip into our fund balance in order to pay salaries, pay our electric bills, pay everything to keep us moving forward, because the state budget was not passed in time. So it is good to have at least 3 months worth of an operating budget in a fund balance so that we can move forward if something happens to our funding through the state level.
What is 3 months?
Our overall budget this year is 37 million. So 3 months is 36. 3 months at 12,000 would be 48. So we're just under that, but I'm comfortable with 12 million. Go ahead, Stephen. This is where our fund balance has been over the past, since 2016. We started at 11.7 million, grew it slightly to 12.3, and then as you saw from the 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, we started to use that fund balance. It has dropped. That big jump from the 9.7 to the 12.15, that was last year. That's that $2 million that we put back in the fund balance last year. And then this year, I'm expecting about a $400,000 to $500,000 increase back into our fund balance. So we should end at the end of the 2022 school year somewhere around 12.6 million left in fund balance. Go ahead, Stephen. And I'm going to turn it back over.
Okay, thank you. So you'll see here that for Peters Elementary School, we have some recommended actions for the school board to consider. They'll have to make final decisions in May, so we can, well, they'll have to make a proposed final budget decision in May, so we can post it for the required amount of days, so they can vote on a final decision in June. State law requires that school districts pass their budget by the last day in June, but it has to be posted publicly prior to that vote for 20 days. So that just kind of gives you a little insight into the timeline that we are required to follow. We're recommending that we integrate computer technology instruction at both elementary buildings into the library classes. We believe that we have a resource in our current elementary library teacher, who also has a strong skill set in technology usage. And by that I mean computer instruction, and also more so along the lines of STEM knowledge as well. And that can be integrated into library class, where we would strike a balance between that direct instruction in computers and technology while also in learning library skills. That would not require the addition of a computer technology teacher to be shared among the two elementary buildings. So we would shift what happens in our elementary library classes and work to enhance some of the strengths that we know we have in our elementary library teacher. We're recommending that we add an additional kindergarten teacher to go from 6 to 7. Ultimately, that would be based on as we come closer to a final projection of kindergarten enrollment for fall of 2022. Again, I go back to we really have to be mindful of our class sizes for the kindergarten classrooms. We would also recommend relocating one paraprofessional to Slatington Elementary School. And in particular, I believe that paraprofessional would go to 3rd grade to work with children with special needs. And I'll look to Mrs. Dada to affirm that.
I don't know which one that is.
Okay. I think I believe that specific position, again, is to work with children with special needs. I don't think it's a general education position, paraeducator. We can confirm that. We are not recommending any increase for materials or programs at Peters Elementary School. Okay, next slide, please. For Slatington Elementary School, we're looking at adding an additional special education teacher due to caseload sizes for us to remain compliant with the IDEA regulations. We're looking again to integrate computer technology instruction into library classes there as well, utilizing our current library teacher. Here, we're relocating one paraprofessional from PES, so this is the building where the one I just mentioned from Peters would land. No budgetary increases for materials or programs.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
For the addition of an elementary staff member, if the kindergarten numbers warrant it, we would approve it in the budget now for June. When would you like decide to do it? Like, what if we don't need it? What if we need it? You know what I'm saying? Like, when do you like make that call? 'Cause
We would-
when will you know really how many kids there are? Like,
We're already starting interviews, and we know that we're going to have some internal movement, right? Because we need to move on this.
yeah.
So we have people lined up. If the board supports it, we can make offers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're already.
Just doing it. Okay.
What's that?
You're just going. Yeah.
With interviews?
have to,
We
yeah.
have to.
No, I
Yeah.
get it.
But we know that the ultimate decision to offer a position comes from the school board. We just don't want to lose candidates for the fall. If we start interviewing for some of these positions after July,
Oh, yeah.
the candidate pool is going to go from small to smaller.
Yeah, that's definitely good to know.
Absolutely. Okay, middle school. I mentioned this in one of the previous slides. We're looking to increase the current .5 family consumer science position to a full-time employee with the additional responsibility for career readiness to supplement what's already going on in the middle school for career readiness, and for support in tier one positive behavior support. So it will become half-time in the classroom, half-time supporting career readiness, which is now required in the state standards under our guidance and college readiness plan, and for also overall positive behavior support at a tier one level. We are recommending no budgetary increases for materials or programs at the middle school. And next slide, Mr. Hawes. All right, recommended actions for the high school is really status quo for support staff, status quo for professional staff, and no budgetary increases for materials or programs. We believe that we are appropriately staffed at the high school based on current enrollment and class sizes. Okay, next slide. And I will turn this back over to Mrs. Molitores.
So these are some cost drivers in the 2022 budget, in the proposed budget that we're preparing. Cost drivers are salaries. Salaries are going up almost $346,000 next year. Retirement and PSERS is going up $222,000. Medical went up 12.3% this year, so that went up $228,000, almost $229,000. Social Security is going up $48,000. Social Security is based on your salaries. So as salaries go up, so does Social Security, which is the same thing with the retirement. That's also based off of salaries. LCTI is $99,000 increase this year, and that is totally driven from student enrollment. So as students go out there, we pay a 5-year average on how many students are in attendance in that school. Then there's always the outlier of charter schools and outplacements, and there's always the potential for increases there. We could have a high-cost student, one high-cost student that can move in that can cost us over $100,000 on a dime. So you just need to account for those what-if possibilities. And then cost reductions, we're looking at electricity. We are recommended taking $40,000 again this year out of our electricity, and that is due to the ESCO project we did a couple of years ago. We are definitely trending in a savings again on electricity. And our unknowns right now, again, is the heating oil and actually all fuel bases, because we also pay our fuel for all the diesel buses that run. So honestly, that bid, we do a consortium bid with CSIU out in Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit. They do a consortium bid with a bunch of local school districts. Those bids will come in on April 30th. We're not sure if anybody's gonna firm bid it because of the fluctuation in the market right now. And if not, that probably means either they're going to shut down the bidding and re-advertise maybe in spring or later spring or into summer. Or there's always the possibility that we will have to go a fluctuating rate all next year, which is a catch-22 because it could drop and we could be very well ahead of the game. And then on top of it, it could shoot through the roof and we could end up paying, you know, $4.50 a gallon. So we won't know that until those bids come out at the end of the month. All right, Stephen? Go ahead, Matt.
So here is again a snapshot from 2018 to 2022 of how much we pay charter schools. So that's all in millions there. The blue line is charter school funding combined for brick and mortar charter schools and cyber charter schools. You'll see that this year we're projecting a slight decrease in overall funding or overall expenditures in charter schools. The red line is for students, regular education students, and the green line is for students who receive special education services in those cyber charter schools or those brick and mortar charter schools.
Can I just add one thing there, Matt, for you?
Sure.
Just so that everybody knows, a regular education student, we pay over $12,000 a year for that student to be outplaced or to be in that charter school. Special ed students, we are paying over $30,000 a year for that special education student to be outside of our district.
Again, that's mandated to us. We do not have the option to negotiate that in any way. That is laid upon us by the current charter school funding laws. Okay, next slide, Mr. Hawes. Again, this just breaks it out between cyber charter schools and brick and mortar charter schools. The biggest cost driver out of all of them is the cyber charter schools. Okay, current budget revenues, I will turn over to Mrs. Maltors.
So currently, again, I am budgeting in the real estate tax collection rate. We have been collecting at a 93.75% collection rate. We have done that over the last couple of years, and we are still collecting at that rate. Our 4.6% Act 1 tax increase that we can increase to, that will give us an additional $813,000 in tax revenue this coming school year. If the board does agree to raise to that amount. Our federal revenues are budgeted as they were budgeted for the same for the 2021, 2022 amounts, and those pretty much stay flat funded pretty much every year. We might lose a couple $100 here or there, but a lot of the federal funding is based on our Title I numbers. So as those don't seem to fluctuate that much for us, those revenues will not fluctuate that much as well. Our state revenues, on the other hand, we did budget them at the 21-22 school rate, but what we're kind of up against right now is the state budget. The governor has said for our basic ed funding, we could see an increase of $768,000 in basic ed funding and $232,000 in special ed funding. At this point in time, that's totally up in the air because you have two caucuses fighting over what one's going to pull all the strings. Who's gonna approach and get what they're asking for. He is an advocate for public education. So, and it is what they're all calling his legacy budget. So it is his budget, he's going out of office. He came in, he was the governor at the time when I spoke earlier. It took almost 5 months for a budget to pass. It was under Governor Wolf that happened. And he fought very hard for public education at that point in time, and that's why the budget took so long to pass. So they feel that he's going out again, trying to give as much money to basic ed funding and to special ed funding to the public school sectors that he can. But where that all shakes out is totally unknown. Hoping we're gonna see at least, maybe 50% of that would be nice. Would love to see all of it. I doubt that we're gonna see all of it, but I've been proven wrong before, so fingers are crossed. And if They've been saying they hope to have a budget passed prior to June 30th and hopefully early, again, because he wants to go out having a budget passed early enough for school districts because his first budget was so contentious that he wants to get one passed earlier and as soon as possible. My recent PASBO trip out to Harrisburg, when we all met at PASBO out there, the governor, or the Pennsylvania revenues are running very, very strong right now. They have over $7 billion in excess revenue that they did not have in prior years. That money needs to be spent. So they say it's coming, but they're not sure how much we're gonna get. They are also now flowing into April, May, and June, when the revenues are always the highest in the state because you have all the EIT taxes, you have all the taxes coming in this time of the year to the state level. So this is the time of year when they see the increase in taxes, so they don't see it going the other way. They're only gonna say that that $7 billion is probably gonna grow. So we're hopeful that we're gonna get a nice increase this year, but I can't base a budget on hopes because we don't know. If it doesn't come through, we won't have the money to balance our budget.
Sherry, just in case it does come through, that's about $1 million
That's
there?
$1 million.
Would that cover our tax increase? That we wouldn't have to increase the taxes?
You'll see how far we're short when we get into one of the next couple of slides. We're gonna be probably about $2 million short, but that is already with a tax increase built in. So if we didn't do a tax increase, you're looking at almost $3 million short. So if we did a tax increase and you also, this comes through, we would be still looking at using probably close to $1 million out of fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
I'm fine. We're fine. Everything's fine.
Go ahead, Stephen. All right, so here's our current fund balance, and this was as of June 30th of 2021. This was a board motion that was approved back in November that shows us exactly where we had items earmarked and dollar amounts earmarked in our savings account to possibly be used for future expenditures. The two highlighted lines are the assigned current year usage. So in the 21-22 school year, I was anticipating on using about $386,000 worth of fund balance. It doesn't look like we're gonna probably be using that. And then I also highlighted the future debt service payments. So we are looking at having $2.4 million in there, and that is to offset some of our debt service payments coming up in the next couple of years. So that, as of June 30th of 2021, after all of our books were audited, we are at $12.1 million in fund balance. Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay, next we're gonna transition into some of our long-term project planning and fund balance utilization. You'll notice that we've been working on this since the 2019-2020 school year. I'm not gonna read it line for line, but you'll see that we've completed a good number of projects there, projects and or purchases that we need to kind of keep the district operations. So a lot of this is buildings and grounds and facilities, either updating infrastructure or purchasing equipment to maintain infrastructure. You'll also notice that a number of the purchases we have purposely delayed because we know that we want to get them, but they are not yet immediate must-haves. You'll notice that the last one on this slide is an in progress. We are able to leverage ESSER 2 funds to pay for the middle school kitchen renovation. You see the cost there, and that project has already started with the ordering of equipment to be manufactured, to be shipped here, so we can basically start the day after school closes. Some of the prep work will actually start prior to the last day of school without interfering with operations of the kitchen. Next slide, please. Again, you'll notice some of the more long-term things here, some of which we're already saying we need to delay again. A lot of that is like classroom furniture purchases, although we do believe we need to address some of the furniture in the high school and middle school libraries. Mr. Durr had mentioned previously about replacing a large utility shed or the pole building. You may be familiar with the one over by the bus terminal heading into the athletic parking complex there. That one we would like to replace and enlarge. We know that the dividing wall that runs in between Peter's Gymnasium and Peter's Cafeteria is constantly failing, and we need to make repairs on it. At some point, we're going to need to replace that, and you'll see the year that we're targeting for that. A couple more vehicle purchases, another maintenance truck. Our oldest one right now, I think, is approaching 21 years old. So that is rapidly approaching life's end. Chillers at the Northern Lehigh High School. Another zero-turn lawnmower a few years out. Another Gell, which is like a Bobcat. We're projecting for the truck and the Gell for the end of next summer. Our plan is probably be able to pay for those out of Mr. Durr's operating budget, not out of fund balance. We're closely monitoring the water treatment plant out at Peters Elementary School. So far, we've been able to maintain it and do any repairs as required. But that current water treatment plant is, how old, Mr. Durr?
It would be from our 1991 renovations.
Okay, so it was installed in 1991. So we're anticipating that we are going to have to replace that in the next few years.
May I ask who monitors that? Do you monitor that, or are you
We
a assigned person?
can,
A-
Fulford and Associates
Yes.
run the plant.
Okay, good.
And then ultimately, an athletic facilities project that we've been talking about for quite some time is the baseball, softball fields and the issues that we have with them oftentimes not being playable, and not necessarily the best use of space the way they're currently laid out. 2030, 2031 for $1 million. However, that price may not be at $1 million at that time. But that, as far as our next athletic facilities go, that would be the next one targeted for a major upgrade. Okay, next slide.
So this is our district expenditures and revenues for the 22-23 school year. We are looking at total expenditures at $37,785 and revenues at $35,715, but that is in the local area, that 4.6% tax increase. So if the board would decide to go anywhere less than that, your local revenues are going to go down, which means your budget shortfall is going to increase. We still currently, after that tax increase, are at a $2,069,000 budget shortfall.
Okay, next slide.
Here's our expenditures and revenues, or expenditures in a bar graph. So again, the first 3 bars, actually the first 4 bars on the left-hand side, that is all of our salaries and benefits. It's salaries, other benefits, medical, and retirement is the light green one. That is 66% of our budget is salaries and benefits, which I like to say is fixed costs. But we can also look at a lot of the stuff in Greg's budget as fixed costs as well. So things like our transportation service, our heating, our oil, our electricity, gas, diesel, all of that are fixed costs that we really don't have much control over. And this does show our principal payment back. That would be the $3 million on the 11 block, all the way to the right. That is the $3 million coming back in now that we have to start paying for our debt service payment that we were relieved from paying for the last 2 years. Go ahead, Stephen. And this is our revenues. So in the local revenues, we're looking at a little over $20 million in our local revenues. Our state is at $14 million. Federal, we get a little over $1 million. Other is less than, it's about $140,000, and then we have our fund balance. So that is showing if we would use fund balance, we would be using 2 little over $2 million in fund balance. Now, if the state comes through with better revenue, that yellow bar will grow and the red bar will decrease because we won't use as much money out of fund balance. And again, as we continue to look at other revenue streams, we could end up applying for some federal grants that may pay for, like Mr. Link said, that school police officer position or other positions within the budget. That yellow state one would rise, and then the red fund balance column would decrease. Go ahead, Stephen. So here's what I'm estimating fund balance to be at the end of June 2022 and where we are looking at going. So ending June 30th, 2022, I'm looking at approximately $12.6 million left in fund balance. We have a little over $2.3 million in our committed fund balance, and that is for healthcare and PCERS increases. And then the assigned fund balance is almost $8 million. It's $7.9 million. The highlighted area is what we are looking at using for the upcoming school year. So we would be looking at $222,000 for PCERS, $228,000 for medical, and then the additional shortfall of $1.6 million to make up that $2,069,000. And that leaves us with a total fund balance at the end of June 30th of 2022 at $2,600,000 and change. And that is because currently you budget that you show the fund balance as not having used the assigned fund balance that we're saying that we're going to use, because you won't know how much of that you're going to use until the end of the school year, once the auditors come in and we determine how much we've used. So we have to show the budget, we have to show the the fund balance as the full 12.6. As of June 30th, that's what we will have left in our budget, in our fund balance, and that's what we have to show as being in our fund balance. Go ahead, Stephen. So here we are again in a big tentative picture. So we're looking at expenses of $37 million. Revenues of $35 million. We're short that $2.6 million or $2,069,000. Using that money from PCERS that has been earmarked for the last 10 years, and then the $228 for the medical leaves us with an additional amount still needed of $1.6, which we would be taking it all out of fund balance. Really, that $1.6 would probably be coming out of that. The area that was marked for our debt service payments, and we would be ending the end of the 22-23 year. So if our fund balance at the end of 22-23 school year, if we used all of the $2,069,000, we would be left with a fund balance of $10,500,000 left in our fund balance. So we would be using over $2 million out of our fund balance. Go ahead, Stephen. So again, we can't increase taxes over the 4.6%, and that was done by a board resolution back in December that said we would not raise taxes over our adjusted index. So that would create revenues for us of $813,000. A Lehigh County median assessed valued home at $149,000 would see a tax increase of $144. Northampton County, an assessed value home of the median assessed value of $45,850 would have $165 tax bill increase. And again, remember, we have to balance our mills based on the step market values. These are very close this year because the homes that sold in Northampton County versus homes that sold in Lehigh County all were pretty similar in base. So then the step market value does not change that much. Go ahead, Stephen. Again, the governor's proposed budget, if we get that basic ed subsidy at $768,000 and we get the $232 in additional special ed funding, as Mr. Disler said, we're looking at almost $1 million in additional revenues. So we take that $2,069,000 down to like $1,069,000 we would be short. Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay, so knowing that this is the first iteration of the budget for next school year, and that it's going to change multiple times as we approach July, Here are some current administrative recommendations for the school board to consider. Consider a tax increase and utilization of fund balance to generate some revenue for the upcoming year. Continue to look for grant revenue opportunities to fund positions such as a school police officer and a social worker. And continue to search for expenditure saving options such as utilities, transportation, and staffing. So this is the first look at the 2022-2023 school year budget. And I will turn it back over to Mrs. Heckman to comments, questions. Anything?
No, I don't personally have anything to say about it right now. I need to go through the presentation. I'd like the rest of the board to be here and read it and think about it, but I mean, I think asking for the full index tax increase is a little aggressive. I know that we need it, but that's like a little insane to me. What's the highest that we've ever, what's the highest percent that the board has increased taxes? And like, I think I voted for a 2.6 once. I think I voted for a 1 point something, my first tax vote, but it's never been, I don't even think I voted for an increase that was in the threes. Did we have an increase that was in the threes in the last couple years?
We have had them in the past.
Yeah.
I want to say probably it might have even been before Ms. Sterling was here.
Yeah.
We had a couple of 3 1/4s, 3 1/2s.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Dissler?
Well, I think it's gonna be kinda hard to swallow for the rest of us to agree to the 4 point, especially the way the economy is right now. Now, I'm not just, I mean, I'm a homeowner myself in the district, so I'm swallowing hard too, just to imagine that. And I'm on a fixed income, so I can imagine what someone with lesser than the income than what I have is gonna struggle with that tax increase.
Yes.
So hopefully we can find a solution to it, but it's not looking good for us taxpayers again.
We put the 4.6 up there because that's the worst case scenario. As in the past, we always back that down. Hopeful that we can do that again this year. But we have to be prepared for the worst.
I was at a meeting last night that actually Steve Walden mentioned about how the sales increases of homes in our area, in the Lehigh area, is at a steady pace, but it's like 74 homes within a 2-week period, and they're being sold. Maybe that's going to be one thing that may help us in the future. I don't know if it's going to help us now, but that maybe looks something we can look forward to keep our tax rate down.
I know I shared out the Lehigh Valley Economic Planning Commission's annual report. I believe the only new residential construction in the district, I believe, was, I want to say 3 homes in Washington Township and 6 in Walnutport.
And I believe
there was 0 new development for commercial or industrial.
Yeah, that's what hurts. Really hurts.
So again, this is a very preliminary look. This will be presented again in, a month from now. It'll be presented again on Monday night. It will be presented again at the Finance Committee in May, at the May board meeting, and then again in June, Finance June board meeting, and will be voted on. It has to be voted on in the June board meeting for final budget. So we'll continue. If you have feedback, please email it to us directly. Call us, email the school board members, email myself, email Mrs. Molitoris. We look for the input. Okay? Thank you for coming this evening. Any additional? Would you, if it's related to the budget, you can now, because that concludes the budget presentation. I see that you have it marked here, but you didn't indicate which section. So if you want to talk about the budget now, would be a good time, Mr. Horn?
Okay. And this is like, okay, just a minute, I can speak my piece here, okay? my gripe is, and I'm with the gentleman here, I'm terrible with names, and I.
Mr. Disler?
Gentleman here, like taxes going up 4-something%. To me, that's crazy. And I'm talking not only for me, I'm talking about my mom. My brothers and I help her financially with this and with that, and it's, I'm not getting into that. But we help her out. And it's not only her, but it's other family members that I have, she might have, he might have, you might have, that are struggling with taxes. And what I have here, and this is a discussion I had with a friend of mine, texting back and forth, so I did my homework. The taxes went up $80 in 2019, okay? They didn't go up a penny in 2020. But then for 2021, they went up $160. So the school board got their 80 anyway. And to jump up, what are we talking now, 140, you're probably up 160 again for taxes. That's crazy. It's what I have here is Slayton has 4,291 taxpayers, Freedom's 1,445, Slakedale 751. And I'm not even including Emerald in this, but there he's increased in almost $1 million. You know, and where did all that go with your revenue and the spending? I just don't, okay, I just watched it here and I understand what she's putting out and okay, you know, I'm learning it. But it's just crazy how, like for instance, okay, furniture. Do we really have to have furniture in the library? Is it like that important this year? The way the Build Back Better system is going? You know, it's just, to me, it's crazy. I don't know. If you can budget it to keep it where I'm at with it, I'm going to retire this year. My house is paid off, so I don't have to pay my taxes through the mortgage company anymore. That's a check from my checking account. And if it goes up $160, whatever, you're going to get the check. So you can write my name down, you can find my address, start the legal procedure now, because you're only going to get this school board, the school district is only going to get what you got last year. I'm not going with this up it. Not at this time, not with this bullshit going on with the
I'm just going to ask that you watch your language.
Democratic Party. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
But it's crazy now to have to, you know, think ahead now again. I'm like, wow, now we're going to get whacked again, you know? It's another thing that depresses me, and I don't eat at McDonald's a lot, I don't eat at Burger King a lot. Now, the last meeting, there were some young ladies here, very smart, very intelligent, hats off to them. But if you want to see some of Slayton's finest, go see the drive-thru over here at Burger King and McDonald's, and you'll see what, not nice to say, but it's the truth. I mean, when I graduated from here, we were pushed to learn, we were pushed to do, we were pushed to make something of yourself. Is that happening now anymore? I don't know. All that time out crap ain't working the way I see it. The only thing, I'll get back on, like, when it's over, then about what this young lady was talking about earlier, and I have something I'd like to say about that, too. But, so for the taxes, I don't know, I give up. I've been paying taxes here. I had one kid go through the school system, you know what I mean? It ain't like, you know, I'm on welfare with 20 kids or nothing like that. It's just, I understand where I'm coming from, you know? Like I said, I agree with the gentleman here 100%. That's a crazy, if Wolf is so good, he's gonna go out with a bang. Hopefully this will all filter out and we're not gonna get an increase. But I have no faith in Wolf either.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
done.
Moore. Thank you. Okay, hearing nothing else on budget, I will look back at the agenda. That concludes the Finance Committee meeting agenda this evening. I'm going to look at our sign-in sheet here. I'm going to ask that we keep it to the agendas that are currently open. Mrs. Williams, you have a maybe written down.
I was depending
we never had to ask if we had a question. When I've been coming to these meetings and we're very open, sign your name, you're here, and something you can speak. Now you're asking if I have to write down, if I have a question. I don't know what I have a question until I hear you people speak. So, you know what I mean, it's very hard for me to say, yeah, I have a question, when I thought this was an open discussion. So I don't know when this has changed. 'Cause it wasn't like that. I know you said you signed my name, that I attended the meeting. And now it kind of seems like, now it feels like, you know, now we have to know what we want to talk about.
Right, and we are trying to share everything out ahead of time. So I'm asking you now if you have anything. I just want to recognize that you wrote down a maybe and see if you have anything.
Speaking of, I'm gonna go back to the budget. With the medical expenses going up, I know everybody's medical expenses go up. Is there something that maybe the public can see how much, you know, working in the district, like what are your medical benefits? Can the public see what the medical benefits are?
I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to find out for you.
I'm just saying, because
Yeah.
I know what my medical benefits are, and I know what I pay, and I pay a lot, and it doesn't cover a lot. So if your benefits going up, I'm just curious to see, like, what kind of benefits, medical benefits do you actually get? Like, compared to mine, I mean, I want to compare, you know, it's like, because I'm just,
Yeah, I don't know.
I
don't know how we would present that, so I'll have to find out.
you know, like when you go for a job, here's your medical benefits, this is what you offer. I'm just curious, you know, if it's going up, what are you getting? Are you getting 100% coverage, are you getting 80% coverage? How much does an employee pay out of pocket? Because I know I have to pay. So I'm just curious, do you shop around to look at different medical benefits? To lower the cost instead of increasing the cost?
We belong to a healthcare consortium, which does that on our behalf.
It just seems like they go up every year.
They do, like pretty much all
Premium
employers.
goes up.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, I know what you're saying, I'm just curious.
Like every year they come back and quote, you know, different ones you can go with. You can change providers, but you might not get the benefits that you really want, you know,
Right.
or you stick
Well, that's
with
what I'm
some-
saying, I mean, that's my homeowners.
Yeah.
I say the thing, I have, you know, a company that comes back and says, here, what would you like?
Right.
You know, you can save or pay more, but I'm just curious of what the district, or what the employers, or employees are getting, how much are they getting, like, what kind of benefits are you getting?
Are they better than what
You
you're
know,
out?
is your coverage probably better than mine, but who's paying for it? We are. That's what I'm trying to say. So can we, hey, if you have to pay out of your pocket, so why? But let's not go after the taxpayers every time your medical keeps going up and your coverage is not covered 90%, but now we're paying for it. Because I know my coverage isn't covered at 90%. You know, so I'm just trying to see, is there different ways that we can save money towards the taxpayer?
And that's
Now,
absolutely.
unfortunately, I know it might come out of the people working in the district, but like he's saying, we're all paying. It's horrible. And how much more money are you gonna keep taking from us? You know? So we're gonna be living together. We'll be moving in together, right? Might have to.
In the auditorium there.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Is there
But
anything
yeah,
else?
if you could look into that, if I could get a copy or somehow get a copy of what, just the benefits, I don't need to know what your, you know, the general benefits are.
Yeah,
I think
it would
your
be,
district as a teacher
it wouldn't
job.
be individualized, it would be what's offered.
Okay,
So we will look into that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more question. It might not even be part of the budget. There was a parent that was concerned about the uniforms for the track. I don't know who addresses this. And also there was something being discussed about soccer uniforms. They're very worn, thin, see-through at this point.
So that would come up at, either you or that parent could bring it up at the monthly board meeting.
Okay.
At that. Yep. You're welcome. Okay, we have one more committee to go through this evening, and that is the Extra and Co-Curriculars Committee.
All right, Mr. Geis, let's start that.
All right, thank you. The first one is the basketball shot clock. I know March Madness has just ended. Just so everybody's aware, NFHS is, which is the governing body for PIAA. The NFHS passed a rule in September of this past year that is allowing states to implement a basketball shot clock, which is a 35-second shot clock. PIAA has not approved it at this point, but I do have an update from today's meeting. I can go through that new timeline. But to kind of give everybody an idea, there would be hardware that would have to be installed and would have to be run if this is approved by PIAA. We're not sure if it's going to be a varsity only, if it's JV and varsity, but the feeling is if it is implemented, it would be just in one particular facility, which in this case would be our high school gym. So in that particular case, the update that I had from today is that the basketball steering committee meeting for PIAA is going to meet on May 3rd. And they are going to discuss this and implementing the particular shot clock. If they decide that they want to move forward with it on May 18th, the board of directors for PIAA will act on it, whether they'll approve or decline. So at that particular point, there are some things that go through. Either A, PIAA doesn't approve it, then we do nothing. B, they decide to table it and say, let's wait a year or two before we implement it, which again, we do nothing. Or C, they say, we'd like to institute this. Likely timeline, and I have it listed on the sheet, if they do implement it, normally they give you 2 years to come into to the point where you have to have implemented the particular rule. So the last time this happened was back in 2009 when they changed the pitching rubber rule for softball. They moved it from 40 feet to 43 feet. They gave schools 2 years, and then we have implemented that in 2011. So at this point, we have to wait and see if PIAA approves this. If we do, we're looking at a set of shot clocks for the high school. This was just a preliminary quote. We're not tied into this. This is just a ballpark quote for particular shot clock accessories and including shipping would, as of right now, would be about $6,700. So that's just the hardware. That's all of that, and that is not the running of the clock. So you still have to pay for somebody to run that. So that's in addition.
That's my next question, like, who does it?
Yeah. The other thing is currently our scores table that we have, we sit 5 people at a 4-person scores table. We manage, we get it done. So we have those 5 individuals that sit there. This would be adding a 6th one, so we're looking at different options. Again, just a preliminary quote. This is worst case scenario at this point, $7,500 for a new table. We would take our existing table, move it here to the middle school for middle school contests. Again, those are worst case scenarios, and that's what we're looking at. So timeline, again, I got the update today. May 3rd, PIAA Basketball Steering Committee is going to decide, hey, we should move forward with this. They make a recommendation to the PIAA Board of Directors. Board of Directors are going to meet May 18th, and they are going to decide at that particular time if they want to move forward, table it, or not do anything with it. So I'll entertain any questions.
Brian, how many clocks are you required to have?
1 at each end. Some data that was shared with me today is that the average shot in today's basketball game is about 13.7 seconds. The shot clock is 35 seconds. So I personally cannot support this because the data doesn't reflect, but again, our hands may be tied if PIAA implements this rule, and that's what we have to go with. And the rule, I think, from what our basketball expert said at District 11 is more for 4th quarter and overtime, so that teams aren't holding the ball. So, field any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Geis. next part for the extra and co-curriculars committee is we just want to give an update on our enrollments for the summer programs that we're running. Recently, we opened registration for the elementary STEAM camp, and we have 55 students currently registered. We opened registration for our new middle school STEAM camp. There are 12 students registered for that. Our Open Horizons Elementary Summer Learning Program, there are 28 students registered for it. And our middle school summer learning program, Inspire, we have 3 students registered for currently. Registration for those programs ends on the last day of April.
I don't think it's the last day. I think it's,
Do you know, mister? So we'll get that. The registration will be closing this month. It's
yes. I don't have, it's the last week of April.
the last week of April. Okay, it is posted on the district website under our summer programs tab. We suspect those numbers will rise over the next week or 2. And that concludes the agenda for the extra and co-curricular committee meeting this evening. Mrs. Heck.
What was the threshold that we needed to hit for the L-Tri-C camp? Do you remember the,
Camp Shine.
yes?
Well, there, it would be 25 students at Peters Elementary School, 25 students at Slatington Elementary School. And for those, it's kind of a combination of registration and us referring kids.
Sure.
So we directly refer to that program.
But right now, we have 28 total between both buildings, is what you're saying, or not?
Different programs. They're different programs.
That's not
Oh,
Shine.
I'm like.
Yeah, there's
yeah,
2 different
okay.
programs. I do not yet have the numbers for the Shine Camp.
Oh, okay. I'm totally off base, okay.
Yep. So the Shine Camp is the one that we're doing, and actually L-Tri-C is running it.
Yeah.
And they're on our facilities. Does anybody have anything else for extra or co-curriculars?
The numbers are going up. Since you got the update, my numbers for STEAM camp are 58 and 14 now, so
Great.
they go up every hour.
So I was just gonna say, so the numbers I gave were from 2 p.m.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
okay. That concludes our last committee meeting.
Can I respond to just 2 questions
Sure.
that came up earlier that they're not related to this though?
Yes.
So I responded to Mrs. Heckman that as far as Canvas is concerned, that does not change our licensing time period. And then Mrs. Snyder, I responded to you through email. Thank you for sharing that with us. We are not purchasing the SEL component. It's strictly the literacy component.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything else for the good before we adjourn this evening? Okay, hearing nothing, I wish everybody have a safe trip home and a good rest of the week.